I'm Mark Baines, the Senior Lecturer for the Capstone course here at Kaplan. With over 25 years of teaching experience, I've helped countless Big Four students pass this exam. Let me show you how to simplify your prep and guide you to success. You may not know, but the Capstone exam is made up of around 85% of QP Module 12 business strategy and finance topic areas. Most students struggle with organising the random Capstone resources, understanding the examiner expectations and managing their time effectively. In my course, you'll receive a clear set of notes broken down into the 9 key syllabus topic areas with a strong focus on the popular areas like formulating business decisions and implementing business solutions. We'll also practice past exam questions to sharpen your exam skills, giving you the best chance of passing. With my structured notes, personalised feedback and expert insights, you'll learn exactly how to meet the standards to pass your exam. Let me show you how in this demo lecture where I introduce the 9 syllabus topic areas and the popular strategic area of implementing business solutions.
Hi, and welcome to this Capstone M12 demo lecture with myself, Mark Baines. In my course, you get my set of notes that's broken up, you can see here, into 2 sets of notes. They're around about 500 pages. I include each and every Capstone question, lots of examples, lots and lots of learning. This is how I break up the subject areas. So it's laid out in quite a logical way. We start off with business strategy. Everything starts with strategy. Before we start getting into detail though, into our 9 areas here, first of all, I get into an introduction, telling you guys what's important before the actual exam, and it's getting on top of these 9 topic areas, preparation, practicing questions, and also learning important exam techniques. The Capstone exam has a lot of application. We get given a very large pre-scene, maybe 16 pages a week before the actual exam. When the pre-scene is released, I record a very famous Mark's final revision review video in which I give you guys hints and tips as to what could be in the actual real exam. So we need to do all the preparation before that exam day arrives. And then on exam day, I talk about exam techniques and case study techniques. So I spent quite a bit of time here on our introduction before we start getting into detail. Now for this short little brief demo lecture, I've chosen here topic 3. You'll see a little later on, this is quite a popular area, our implement business solutions. So during our introduction, what I then go into and introduce are the 9 syllabus topic areas. So as per HICPA, this is our syllabus here, 9 areas, as well as what you've learned at the QP levels here as well. And just before we start looking at the Capstone exam, this is in the bold boxes here. Look, you can see this was the FE as an average before we had the Capstone exam. And it used to be 25% module 11, 13, 14 and 12. It used to be very, very evenly split. Now look, since the Capstone, you can see the Capstone now has a lot of M12 topic areas. Look, 97% of the exam here, or 90% of the exam there was M12 areas. Recently, look, 74, 85, 74. And before in the FE exam, popular areas used to be things such as raising finance, ethics, and things like risk management. That's now changed. There's a lot more questions here on the strategic areas, particularly this one, formulating business decisions, including things like mergers and acquisitions are very popular. These are the marks. The Capstone exam is out of 80 marks. And look, we're going to have a little look in a second at topic 3, implement business solutions, another popular area just here. Raising finance still remains popular. ethics is still popular, and also risk management are also popular. We go through each of the 9 topic areas. It's my set of notes. You only get them on my course. So it's worth pointing that out. Let's get into our topic 3. So before we start getting into detail in topic 3, the first thing I do is show students the big picture, how the topics relate to one another, and we are going to be spending time here on our topic 3. This is where we implement our business solutions, where we start putting things into action. So here it is a little later on in my set of notes. Here's our topic 3, where we implement now our business solutions. This is where we start thinking about action and control. So this is where the overall or corporate business strategy, our strategic plan, what we want to do, we're now trying to break it down and translate it into how we're going to achieve that. That's known as a tactical or business plan before even greater detail into individual functions or individual activities or individual departments. And so the key implementation here areas to consider in this topic 3 begin here underneath. Look, we've got operational business processes. It's been tested. I introduced the area. We've got examples. I go through questions. The next one you can see is our e-commerce and emerging technologies. Again, I introduce it. It's been tested. I include all the past questions. We go through examples, and then we go through questions. But the area I've selected for this demo lecture here is another popular area. It's human resources management. And so if we think about money and finance, money's important, people are important here as well. So having the right people with the right skills and abilities at the right time. We go through and introduce HRM. We then start introducing HR planning. But look, you can see popular areas here we've had in the past is things like recruitment and selection. And so although in the actual exam there's no ideal plan for recruitment, it varies from industry to industry. Most plans would consist of the following. So we'd have our job analysis. This is a detailed analysis of the job, the purpose, the task, the knowledge, the skills required, the sort of person we're looking for, a person specification, and then we'd have more detailed recruitment and selection processes. So here's our recruitment processes. We're thinking about trying to target, search, and attract the right candidate. That can either be through internal recruitment, so we could do that through promotions or internal transfers. There's advantages of doing it internally. You can see it avoids the time and cost of external recruitment. We've got a little bit later on. By maybe employing people internally or promotions that could boost employee morale. But it's not all good news. There's problems, there's disadvantages here as well. There's external recruitment. This is done by attracting suitable candidates at things like career fairs or websites, social media or recruitment agencies. To attract people, we've got to think about what we're going to offer them. That's an attractive compensation package, not only salary, but maybe other benefits here as well, things like training and development. And again, look, you've got what's good about external recruitment and then the problems or the disadvantages. Once we've thought about our recruitment process, we next need to start thinking here about our selection process, selecting the right candidates for the job. So asking things like CVs, application screening, maybe assessing them through things like tests or asking them to design a product, group activities, face-to-face interviews, references, background checks. You guys have been through this, I'm sure, before. This is a popular area, though, this HRM area. It's not only about recruitment and selection. We've also had here on questions, for instance, on succession planning. This is about identifying early key employees who can succeed future leaders, but so far not tested in any of these capstone exams, but in the syllabus is other HR areas. Areas such as our training and development, here in greater detail. In the course, we go through it. There's things like performance appraisal, and then towards the end of this demo lecture, I'm going to show you some financial strategy. We've had a couple of questions on this one. This is where we translate the strategic plan into detailed financial plans. They can ask you in the Capstone exam for things like cash flow forecasts or budgeted financial statements. These are important when we start thinking about the finance we need to raise to be able to match that need. Now, what we do during the actual course is go through topic by topic. We learn, we go for examples, and then we spend a lot of time on question practice. And so what I do here with the question practice, with each of the questions, I first will introduce important points that were being raised in the pre-seen case scenario. So like I mentioned, this is a week before the actual exam, 5 working days. You get this pre-seen scenario, and then on exam day, you get additional information. So this is quite a large part of the pre-seen I've put in. And then look on exam day. They then give you more additional information just here. So this is a 26-mark question here. In the Capstone exam, 80 marks, you've got 4 hours, so you have more time to answer these questions because there is a lot here. Look, you can see a lot of information being given. And then on the next page here, we've then got our requirements. But I thought since this is quite a short demo, I don't want to do a big, large question. So what I've chosen here is a smaller question here. And in this smaller question, this is back in December 2021, there was a lot of important information in the pre-seen, but very, very little in the written questions. So let's go back first of all to what students would have known before the actual exam. We've got this guy called Yang Jair. He's the founder of a company called Simplistic Company. We can refer to them as the company, and they sell a range of ladies' wear through lots of different channels, not only physical stores, but online as well, using media marketing platforms. Fine, okay, that's our scenario. Let's now look at our written question. So on exam day, there wasn't a lot more additional information they was giving us. What they were asking us was this. It says we need to identify some important issues that Yang and Zhang. So what's important in the exam is always application. Identifying companies, company names, or here we've got some people, Yang and Zhang. We need to identify some important issues to consider. This is before proceeding to recruit international young designers and. So let's start breaking this one up. First of all, you can see this is recruitment. So straight away in our Capstone exam, we're thinking about the area here of HRM. And look, it seems that here we don't need to start performing a job analysis or a person specification. They've already told us the target here. This is international young designers. So this is going to be external recruitment, therefore. So first of all, we've already got our target. It also asks, if we continue reading on, it says, propose some possible actions and activities that could be taken by Yang and Zhang in recruiting these young designers. Well, it's not just about recruitment. If we've got lots and lots of candidates, our activities, our actions, we can also be thinking here about things like selection as well. So when we recruit, we also need to start thinking about selection. So this is for 7 marks. If we can write as a minimum 7 short paragraphs applied to the scenario, using the scenario, issues that Yang and Zhang need to be aware of, you will get the full 7 marks. But as we have 4 hours in the Capstone exam, I always urge my students to write more if you can write more in the actual exam. Let's have a little look. Yang, who was Yang? We saw Yang earlier here at the beginning. Yang was the founder. Who's Zhang? Let's carry on reading here. In the next paragraph, in the pre-scene, this is before the exam day, students knew who these people was. Zhang It says a visiting professor for the fashion design at Beijing who had been working as a chief designer, this is in the China office, joined the company as design director. So straight away, if we've got design directors and who we're wanting to recruit, we want to recruit international young designers. Definitely Zhang here is somebody who we should be including at the interview stage. Let's see what else Zhang's done. It says Zhang's designs, renowned for being contemporary, avant-garde, hand-glazed, meticulous care. So maybe at selection, not just only interview, maybe Zhang as well, they're talking here about design features here, contemporary avant-garde. Maybe Zhang could assign a design review. So this would really test the candidates here. Can they produce good designs here for this company? So maybe assigning a design review. This would be another good idea here. So you're trying to apply, as we read the scenario, you're trying to use everything you can to score the marks. Make it applicable. Don't just talk generally about recruitment and selection. We need to be using here specifics. Let's carry on reading. It says Zhang received a profit share of 20% of gross profit and a fixed base salary as remuneration. So they're giving us all of this here because if we are going to attract candidates to this company, we need to start thinking here about the compensation. Not only the pay that we're going to be paying to these international recruits, but maybe other benefits. It's not just going to be looking only at pay. They're going to be looking at other benefits that we can offer them as a company that designs, maybe things like training, maybe things like development. So ... we need to start thinking about that to make it attractive, therefore. It says to get more international insights and updates, Yang and Zhang travel to attend fashion shows in Europe, Japan, and US. Well, if they go to fashion shows, this is definitely somewhere, if we're recruiting externally, where we could target these young people here where they are likely to be and attending. So definitely, this is somewhere where we want to target our young designers. It says they bring back valuable insights from each trip, share with the designers. They've also built up good relationships with design schools. So another place we could be thinking about targeting young designers here would be these design schools. It says their professors and students not only exchange views, but also discuss internships as well. So internships, short working opportunities, maybe professors as well. If we've got professors here, let's put a little bit short for recommendations. Maybe the professors could come up with some recommendations who they think would be attracted to an international role within our company. Definitely, the professors as well would be also good for references. So all this looks good, all this we can be mentioning, but there is a little problem here. It says, during such discussions, Yang and Zhang have noted that some famous design houses have offered unreasonably high salaries and remuneration to attract young talent. At the beginning, I couldn't understand why, but they gradually understood that's what we need to do if we want to attract the best talents for the company's long-term development. Here's the problem. When they shared this with the senior designers, they were generally here strongly against offering high salaries to graduates or young designers with little working experience. So this is the problem here. If we want to compete internationally and offer high compensation packages, it's likely to be a problem and upset our existing designers here. So we've got to be aware of this difference in salary that we might have to pay, or sometimes known as salary discrimination. So look, we read the scenario, we've reread the written question, so we need to start talking about recruitment and selection. Let's now start writing our answer. And before we start getting into recruitment here, let's just mention that already it seems they've already come up with their target for their recruitment. International, so this is external young designers. So look, what I then do with my Capstone students is I give you my recommended solution. These are often better than the official, with many more things in it. I receive many prize winners in my Capstone course by showing you guys how to score the marks. So what you want to try to write is short paragraphs. So let's say this is all about what Yang and Zhang need to consider the important issues. This is before recruiting. Remember earlier, we saw job analysis, we saw the person specifications. These are the quantities, the kind of person that's a good match. But as we saw from the scenario, it seems we don't need to go into detail into that area. It seems that Yang and Zhang had already decided they want to recruit these external international young designers. So it means that in the exam, we want to write a lot more on the recruitment process. Let's introduce what we're doing first of all with recruitment. We're aiming to try to target, search and attract this target, which is this international young talent externally. We need to start thinking about several factors here. First of all, we've got that attractive compensation package. If they are traveling to China, if it's going to be international, we need to meet not only their basic economic needs, this will be a minimum to attract them, but also we need to start thinking about things such as the development, the training here as well. So all this needs to be conveyed to the designers in the first place, and we've got to be aware of the problem of that salary discrimination therefore. So where could we recruit from? Well, talented designers may sometimes be an opportunity process. So look, in the scenario, in the pre-scene, they talked about things like design schools we could go and visit. There's things like the fashion shows, therefore. We could even get nominations and recommendations from others. It talked about things such as professors, therefore. But not only when we target them are we giving them information about the money they can make. We mentioned about things like the training and development. And so if they are good designers, it's not just looking only for a good salary and selecting a job, but they'll be definitely looking for that as well. So definitely looking at things like development opportunities here, innovation, they'll be thinking about creativity. That is what they want to work in if they're working for our company. It's about that developmental opportunity, developing, training their skills, their experience. Then after we've talked here about our recruitment process, next we've then got our selection process. Let's introduce this. So this is where we're starting to think about planning early in the process. How are we going to select? So it's not just things like interview. We could ask for things like design artifacts, get them to attend an interview. We could obtain references here as well. And what we're going to select and why we're going to select them, all that needs to be very clear and communicate to them before they actually come along and decide they want to work for us. We also need to decide as well who's going to interview, who's going to assess. Remember we talked earlier about Zhang was the design director, so maybe that's going to be useful, including them in the product design or interview process. Let's finally finish off by saying if we use all these steps, this should be giving us great, fantastic results in recruiting here. Our international, this is young designers. So look, you didn't need to write this much. I've written way more than what would be required here. You can see, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. But look, when this was set in the real exam, it was not answered well. Students didn't write enough. We need to be able to write enough. Remember, in the Capstone exam, you have a lot more time. 4 hours, 80 marks means you're working towards 3 minutes per mark. If you have more time, always write more is what I would suggest. Let me show you a larger question here. So, okay, look, here's another question on recruitment and selection. This is from December 2023. It's that large question that I showed you guys earlier. In the written question on exam day, there was talking about they lack human resources. So what they're thinking about doing here is recruiting at least 25, maybe even 40. And then in the written requirements, A, we're not going to spend time on. This was related to technological issues. Look, it's this B and C. B was asking you for a cash flow analysis. So back in the written questions earlier, you can see, look, we're being given here, this is a number of options, choices here. There are several options. First of all, it says the company can offer much higher compensation packages to target staff in other competing companies. And then look, we're being given cash flow information just here. So this is what they want you to do in part B. They're wanting you to put through, this is a cash flow analysis of each of the 3 options, and then we need to recommend select, which is the cheapest. So this is purely financial. Look, with the 3 options, we've got the first one, targeting staff other companies. Second one here is recruiting more experts from Hong Kong and Southeast Asia. And again, look, you can see they're giving us more cash flow information here as we read through. And then the final third option here, this is selecting loyal staff who have a good potential to provide in-depth job training in these positions, therefore. So we've got 3 here. This is choices, 3 options. What we're doing first of all is financially going through each of those 3. Of course, in the actual course, I give you guys the solutions here. So this is putting together some financial data. Not too difficult, not too tricky. But let's look here at this part C. This one answered as well, part C. It says, for your chosen option recommended by you, state clearly 3 major factors may prevent from adopting this recommended option for non-financial reasons. So something that you guys will see a lot of, this is during the actual Capstone course, is this, where we've got financial and then non-financial considerations. So financial, I think, shouldn't be too bad, putting together some figures and numbers. But let's think about this major factors that may prevent. So this is problems of adopting a recommended option. So look, you can see they're giving you a large scenario. So look to see, is there any specific problems in the scenario? If not, you can then start talking about general problems. Look, earlier we talked about internal problems and disadvantages, external recruitment problems and disadvantages. Because look, you can see the first option here is other competing companies. So that one would be external. This is recruiting more from Hong Kong and Southeast Asia. That one again would be external. Or if we've chosen the third one here, you can see this is selecting loyal staff for training. This one would be internal recruitment. So again, we talk a lot more about application, and if we can't apply, then apply general points here from my set of notes from each of these areas. So only a little brief. This is introduction to the Capstone, a little brief introduction into my lectures and how we go through. But like I said earlier, we have all the Capstone questions. We go through topic by topic in a logical manner, building up our knowledge, practicing lots, and it's those application skills that are very, very important here to pass the Capstone exam. Hope you've enjoyed this short little demo lecture. Hope to see you guys very, very soon on the Capstone course. That's for me. Good night. Thank you. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.